What is going on with the huge row over Prince Harry's latest award? Could King Charles be about to parachute in a new princess to the firm? And is it time to stop bowing to our royals? We'll answer all those and more in another great episode. Welcome to Palace Confidential, the world's favourite royal show. I'm Jo Elvin, and on my panel today is the Daily Mail's royal editor, Rebecca English, the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, and the Mail's diary editor, Richard Eden. Welcome to you all. Now, a reminder, if you don't already, please do join our legions of subscribers here on the Daily Mail's royal channel. Click that button and never miss another episode of your favourite royal show. Let's get going. Rebecca, you've been out and about again as usual. You've been in Scotland, where there's been a lot of royal activity, some of it unsurprisingly involving some feathers and some thistles. What can you tell us?
Well, it's what's known as Holyrood Week or Royal Week, except it's actually only 2 days this year because of the King needed to be back in London for the general election. But it's a time of year the Sovereign goes up to Scotland and celebrates Scottish culture, achievements, community. So we've had everything from garden parties to investitures. They were at Edinburgh Castle. They were the Order of the Thistle, which is a kind of the Scottish equivalent of the Order of the Garter, very, very prestigious order of chivalry. And actually the King was ensuring that the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh were invested. And there's a magnificent picture actually of him, Prince William, who's known as the Duke of Rothesay, over north of the border, and the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen all together. And I have to say, although the King did look a little bit tired at times, he was full of, just a little bit round his face. He was full of energy, and I was at a garden party with him, and he, I could almost convince he met every 8 of the 8,000 people there. He stayed later than he should because he wanted to shake so many hands. He was enjoying himself. They really packed a lot into those 2 days.
They do all really love Scotland, don't they? And now, now that they've been up there, do you think that means they will spend the rest of summer there, or has the election put paid to that?
Oh no, they're definitely coming back. So they're coming back to London. In fact, I'm already booked in to do an engagement with the Queen next week, and then next weekend I'm travelling with them to Jersey and Guernsey in the Channel Islands for engagement. So there's quite a lot for them to fit in. But I think they'll probably kind of move back up to Scotland around the 1st, 2nd of August, and we'll probably stay up there till early September.
Here's something I imagine a lot of our viewers might be wondering about. You may or may not be aware, it's election day in Britain today, general election. We'll all be casting our votes at some point today. The royal family, do they vote? Can they vote? Will they vote? What do we know?
By convention, they don't. Obviously, they have to be above politics. But it's interesting who's included in that. I'm sure it's the senior royals don't, probably none of the working royals would, but I'm sure other members of the extended royal family can vote. Whether they do, I don't know, but I didn't see anyone at the polling station this morning.
No, not in your neck of the woods. I mean, that's the thing, it's like, it's an endless source of curiosity, isn't it, where their political leanings lie.
Well, we know that Harry used to campaign for the Americans to vote in the last presidential election, and he got a bit of stick for that because he can't actually vote himself. So, it'd be very interesting to know what he's planning to do.
Actually, he could still have a postal vote and vote in the UK if he wanted to.
But can he? Because he's a non-working royal.
Well, it's a moot point. He wouldn't have been allowed to when he was here before, but could he now? I think he probably
Oh, Rebecca,
could,
please don't encourage Harry to have a grudge about something else.
I vote in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, so I'll look out for them for you.
That's because you're just so fancy. We know that about you, Charlotte. Now, Richard, a lot of people have been talking about this possibility of Charles creating a new princess. What's it all about? But most importantly, can anyone apply? What's going on? Is this our big chance?
There has been sort of growing speculation about Zara Tindall becoming a princess.
Elvin misses out again.
We all love Zara, and we've seen her quite a lot. We saw her at the Buckingham Palace garden party, helping her cousin Prince William. And it's something that would be popular. Her and Mike Tindall are very popular members of the royal family. But I think it is very unlikely to happen. She's very busy, has lots of business, and it would be awkward.
Yes, I mean, obviously we know that Zara's very popular, Rebecca, but would there even be willing on her side if there was willing from the King?
I feel like I always have to be the party pooper here. Like, it's just not.
That's your role.
Yeah,
Yes.
it won't happen. I mean, she has obviously a very full life as a professional equestrian with a lot of sports sponsorships. The King, there's not actually a kind of carved out role for her financially. They'll have to create a role. Would the King have to support her financially? Personally, I suspect he would if he did that. It just wouldn't work. But I think that way she can have the best of both worlds. Like you rightly say, she can dip into events like garden parties. I'm sure when, William eventually becomes king, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her more at palace functions, maybe at state banquets, but without having the kind of onerous responsibilities that come with it.
Do you think that's workable, Charlotte, like a second tier where occasionally you deploy the princesses, so to speak, Zara, Beatrice, Eugenie for garden parties, etc.?
I think it's a very good working principle. It's already really happening though, isn't it? We've seen them a lot this summer, and actually that's why Zara has emerged as this actually quite brilliant royal. She's dressing incredibly well at the moment. Obviously, William really trusts her and loves her. You can just tell they have a really deep bond, and I think he trusts her more than any of his other cousins. And it's such a delicious irony, isn't it, that she's the one who had the HRH taken away at birth by Anne, the best royal there is, and has emerged as actually one of the most natural, most relaxed, most trustworthy members of that extended royal garden party pack.
It's like you're saying not being an HRH is very good for you.
It kind of is. She's done a great job, and actually she's the one to get it back. But she wouldn't want it. That's the whole thing. She'd probably go, no, I don't really need the status. Unlike other people across the Atlantic.
And she's doing. Sorry, Richard. She's doing very well. I mean, it wasn't that Anne took the HRH away from her. She was never actually entitled to it, but Anne could have said to the Queen, or the Queen could have offered, like, would you like your children to have titles? And she could have said yes, and Anne very sensibly declined and said no, let them make their own way in the world. And
she's become such a normal person because of that. She is just a very chilled, relaxed sort of woman.
I mean, perhaps, by the time William does become king, Zara will be a bit older, and she might take the view, I can leave behind the commercial work and actually embrace being a full-time working royal. I mean, I think that would be great. And maybe that's something that we will see.
She may be she is the only royal that I've ever met in a Lou queue.
Oh, so where was that?
My old job at Glamour magazine at the Glamour Awards, where she was winning an award for Sports Personality of the Year.
You and your glamorous life.
My previous glamorous life. Now I'm sat here with you.
And were there any riders for her, or was there, were there any riders for her in terms, not horse riders, as in terms of only blue M&Ms
terrible demands?
or anything?
No, nothing like that. Yeah. And she ended up by, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it's like by proxy using one of my staff as an unofficial stylist for a little while. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. So there you go. These are a trivia today. We'll have more on Princess Anne later in the show. But now, speaking of more delusions of grandeur, some would argue, your colleague Amanda Patel, Richard, has called on King Charles to stop the convention of people having to bow and curtsy to the royal family. What do you make of that? I mean, that's kind of just part of the whole deal, isn't it?
It's interesting. The reason Amanda was writing about this in her column in the Daily Mail was because of Taylor Swift's meeting with Prince William and Princess Charlotte and Prince George, because Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, said that before he met the royals, he asked for a bit of guidance from William's aides, and they said, look, you don't need to bow. No one expects you to. So, he was keen to find that out, and he didn't. And so Amanda's point was, she thinks they should sort of ditch that whole convention that obviously traditionally, everyone would bow, the men would bow, women would curtsy to Queen Elizabeth. Obviously she was a queen for a very long time. But we do see with King Charles and Queen Camilla a less formal approach. I've talked before about how people that Camilla knows often seem to sort of greet her with kisses or hugs.
Yes, so doesn't seem to be a hard and fast rule in the way that there was. Does there?
I think no one sort of insists on it, but certainly I think you would still be expected to bow or curtsy to the King and Queen.
What about you, Charlotte? If you see the royals at your polling station today, will you bow? Will you curtsy?
Well, in my personal experience, meeting Philip, Harry and William in private...
Get her.
Just showing off there. I didn't. I think in a private capacity, I met them all sort of in people's houses or in private events. I just wouldn't have even dreamt of doing it. But I think if you met them at a formal event, you would. And if we don't curtsy to the royals, then it will die out. I mean, that'll be the end of generations, hundreds of years of curtsying. And that's really sad, I think.
And it will end up just being the sort of Pilates move, won't it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Or that over-exaggerated move that Meghan did that sort of got her in all sorts of trouble on that Netflix documentary.
Or
that was
Prince
so
Charles,
embarrassing.
actually, during COVID, he really got into his namastes, didn't he, as well?
Yes, yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah. I think the rule is in private, you don't bother.
I'm going to ask you to be the voice of reason again, Rebecca. Can
Stroke
you see
party pooper.
Can you see this tradition dying out? Do you curtsy?
I don't curtsy because I kind of feel like I'm there in a professional capacity. I'm working. It doesn't really enter my brain. I'm so busy watching what they're doing, and also I don't think it's really expected now. I mean, I think there was a time, leading up to Queen Elizabeth, and even in the sort of the 1980s and 1990s, when it was kind of expected. But I think certainly as I've been doing this job, it has been rapidly dying out. And if anyone asked for etiquette from a member of the royal household, and they were asked, they were told, no, you don't have to. If you want to, it's up to you. They're more instructing them, if you want to know how to address a member of the royal family, you should say Your Majesty or Your Royal Highness in the first reference, and then Sir or Ma'am afterwards. That's what people are more concerned about. I mean, when I go on these engagements and you see like a little girl presenting a posy, I actually think they like doing a curtsy. It's part of the big... the buzz around meeting a member of the royal family, meeting the king or the queen.
Well, I think that's my argument.
Wouldn't be expected.
Yeah, I think that's my argument. It's part of the whole thing about that's what makes them royal.
Well, it would be a shame if it dies out because, it is that mark of respect. I mean, if you don't have that respect for the monarchs, then what's the point? You've got to, that sort of goes with the territory.
Do you think they feel disrespected when they don't get curtsied to when you see them on the beach?
No, definitely not at all. I mean,
they don't get offended?
No, definitely not. I mean, William and Kate, no way. And even the King and Queen, as older members of the royal family, not in the slightest. In fact, I'd say, Queen Camilla's quite informal. She'll, like you say, she'll give people a kiss on the cheek and she'll see us and wave and say morning, or this week when I saw her in Scotland, kind of waved her umbrella at me, they are much more informal, I think, than people give them credit. I think the one advice I would ever give of someone meeting royalty is not to shove a phone in their face. That's the one thing they do get a little bit offended by, because they want to meet people, and we've got a whole culture now. Everyone wants to capture that moment on film. But you see them going down the lineup, and literally they're addressing people, but people are holding their phone, looking at their phone like that while they're shaking hands and
that's so
talking
rude.
to them. And I think they find that quite off-putting.
You can't ask the king for a bloody selfie.
Actually, someone did this week at the garden party. Someone did, and actually the king made a point. I think he was a young lad who... I think he has some sort of disability, and the king actually, because I saw saw him ask a member of staff. The king called him over, took the young boy's phone off him, and gave it to the member of staff, and stood there for a picture. And because it was the first time I'd ever seen that, I said, "Oh, who was that young boy? Was that set up before he got in?" They said, "No, he just asked the king, and the king was happy to do it." So,
gosh. Well, Rebecca, before we get to the comments and the latest Prince Harry controversy, they're as reliable as buses. Is there any update on this speculation about whether or not Catherine will attend any of Wimbledon, which is on this week?
Nothing officially, but certainly the mood music seems positive that we might see her at some point in the next couple of weeks. I think the reason why no one wants to commit is obviously she is, as she said herself, still undergoing chemotherapy and wants to see how she feels on any one particular day. I mean, there's still a lot going on. William's going to be doing some engagements, some quite important engagements next week. We've seen him this week. And also I wrote a story about how the couple have appointed a new advisor to their team, a man who turned around Tesco's, which is a big supermarket chain in the UK. And was known for his voracious cost cutting.
Yes,
I thought the Royals shopped at Fortnum and Mason's. This really is going down
it's more sensible times are called for. Do you expect a big shake-up of their foundation?
No, not at all. I mean, it's his appointment, Drastic Dave's appointment, is one of a team of trustees, and what they're very clever, I think, at the foundation. They handpick these people. So they've got somebody who's an expert in media, someone who's an expert in law, and now they've brought in a business brains to basically advise them on their big philanthropic efforts moving forward. So I think, if anything, it shows that they're going from strength to strength as opposed to needing any kind of drastic shake-up.
Okay, so yet they still decided they needed drastic days.
Yeah, you like that, don't you,
Got
Joe?
it. Okay, well, let's hear some of your thoughts now. And Janet Bryan had this to say about Princess Anne's recent medical emergency. I'm surprised Princess Anne isn't tunnelling out of hospital with a spoon by now. You and me both, Janet. I hope she's okay. Well, we'll have an update on Anne a little bit later in the show. Fear not. Peasty, meanwhile, writes, in praise of the Prince of Wales, William is gracious and strong. Should the UK survive, he will be a great king. Thank you so much, Peasty, for your confidence in the future stability of the UK. We're all feeling great about that on election day. Finally, lots of you were cross about the prospect of Meghan Markle's wine. I've never been cross about wine. Like Luella, though, who wrote, this American will not buy Meghan's wine, jam or anything else from Meghan. Well, steady on. I think if you're in a pinch and you need some wine, I'll buy it. I'll buy it, Meghan. Back to my panel now. And if there's one thing we know that the Sussexes do like to do in LA, it's pick up an award. But the latest one that Prince Harry is in line for is causing a big controversy. Before I tell you about that, here are just some of the awards they've been given recently. To remind, there was the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Ripple of Hope Award, which the couple were given for the work they've undertaken in promoting, I'm quoting here, promoting racial equality, social justice and mental health. Then Harry, who was a helicopter co-pilot when he was in the army, was inducted into the Hall of Living Legends of Aviation. Also, there was an award that I didn't know about this one, and I was super surprised by this one, from the Population Matters charity for having just 2 children and reducing their impact on the earth. I mean, come on, you and I've got 1 child. Where's our trophy? Rebecca, but next week, Harry will be getting the Pat Tillman Award for service from ESPY. And tell us why that's causing quite so much controversy.
And controversy it is causing. Without going into too much detail, obviously Pat Tillman was a celebrated American football player who very admirably after 9/11 decided to turn his back on a very lucrative career, sign up for the army because he wanted to serve his country, and was very tragically and actually quite controversially killed in Afghanistan. An award has been set up in his memory to highlight those that marry sport and serving their country. And the ESPY Awards, Harry has been given this Pat Tillman Award for setting up the Invictus Games, which is obviously the kind of Paralympic style sporting competition he set up for serving and ex-service personnel. So in some ways there shouldn't be a controversy, but there is, because people feel it's rather me for him to accept the award. And also Pat Tillman's own mother has come out, and actually she was speaking to the Mail on Sunday, our sister paper, in which she said, I find it really outrageous that somebody so divisive and controversial has gotten this.
Let me stop you there, because I've got the full quote here. This is what Pat's mother, Mary Tillman, had to say. She said, I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients far more fitting. There are individuals working in the veteran community that are doing tremendous things to assist veterans. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections, or privilege that Prince Harry has. Richard, those are such strong words. And at the time of checking, as we were recording this, more than 50,000 people have signed a petition calling for a rethink of giving Harry the award. What is going to be the outcome here?
I just think for once, Harry needs to do the honourable thing and, just say no, turn it down. What I've written for a piece for Mail Plus in my newsletter this week is that Harry should say, you know what, actually I won't accept this, because the last thing the organisers of this event want is this kind of controversy, that he, it's a great award that's meant to be honouring someone who's, put service before personal gain, and it really isn't appropriate for Harry to get it. So I said, if he's a gentleman, if he's got a sense of shame, he won't accept it.
Tell me what you think. I'd jump in anybody. It feels like a good PR opportunity here for Harry would be to speak to Pat Tillman's mother and possibly just open that channel of communication and
win her
campaign
over
for the Invictus Games. What do you think?
I think it would really win her over. She's obviously a very outspoken woman. He'll change her mind, and then he can have the last laugh, which he loves having over the press, because of course we picked up on the fact she's not happy about this. And if he could somehow charm her. I mean, there was a time when Harry was really very charming and he was great with people like this. It's such a shame that that's kind of got lost over the years because he's become so obsessed with his own ego.
The trouble is, it seems to have sparked a bit of a family row out there because Pat Tillman's widow, who is involved with the awards and with the charity set up in his name, which his mother isn't, supports him getting it and thinks it's a good idea. So it's a real shame that something that should be so positive is just mired in controversy. But I suspect there's been a little bit of kind of deafness from those organising it as to how this might go down.
What do you think about this, Charlotte? I think we're sensing that Amanda Plattel, we think we know where she stands when it comes to Team Sussex. We mentioned earlier, she wrote that the Sussexes are so wrapped up in their own narcissistic sanctimony, so tin-eared to the criticism, that they seem oblivious to the sensitivity of this issue. Is that fair?
I mean, I think it is sort of fair. I get the impression that it's life for Meghan Markle at the moment is a sort of prom king sort of event. And he's the prom king and she's the prom queen, and she's setting up all these events over the years that they can attend together. Although at the Living Legends of Aviation one, she actually didn't turn up with him because a similar controversy had happened before the event. And then she didn't go with him because she just wanted to get out. I mean, I'll be very interested to see if this time next week she goes with him. Serena Williams, her great friend, is presenting the award, so she may well attend. But I just think, life isn't a red carpet event for them to show off their brand. There are some very serious events out there, and they are being tin-eared.
Interesting. Richard, you've written in your newsletter why you think they keep accepting these awards.
Well, it's just sources in America just pointing out that it is part of the sort of showbiz world that they're in. That the awards are a way of keeping them in the public eye, particularly if they don't have new material, they're not bringing out any new work, that it keeps them kind of relevant, and it's these awards are promoted by their PR people, but it's pretty unedifying.
I think that's why it's so jarring, is because it's not new work, as you said, Richard. This is old work. He was in the army. I mean, this is also a celebration of his time in the army. That was a long time ago now. And I just think it feels like he needs something new, really.
Well, it's interesting as well, isn't it, that whether or not he's aware of the sensitivities, it kind of also jars, I think some would argue, with Harry's views on the press, being photographed, being written about, attending public events where you're sort of like, clamoured onto by the press. So does he want to be out at these events? Yeah,
he used to rebel against that, of course, when he was a working royal, and how awful it was being in the spotlight and trapped over here in the UK, forced to do all these awful events. And now, as you say, he's courting them over there. So there's definitely some hypocrisy there.
Well, I wouldn't be doing my job, Rebecca, if I didn't play devil's advocate for a second. Now, Sussex fans and others might say that the royal family give themselves medals and titles every now and again. What's the difference?
I think it's a fair question. It's a tricky one to answer, but I think what I would say is that when it comes to uniform and medals, our sovereign is head of the armed forces. Therefore, there comes a uniform and a role with that job. The sovereign asks other members, working members of the royal family, to perpetuate that link with the military, with various regiments. And of course, that comes with, wearing particular medals and uniforms that signify you as being their colonel or, one of their, colonel-in-chief. So I think it's slightly different. And I just think it goes back to this point, which I think maybe it was Charlotte picked up on, is that you very rarely see a member of the royal family getting an award for something they have done. I mean, there's been jokey ones over the year. Maybe the King, as Prince of Wales, might have accepted one environmental award, but you don't, because they consider public service to be an award in itself. And obviously Harry and Meghan are now, I think maybe as you said, or you, Joe, part of that kind of showbiz celebrity lifestyle, where part of their lifeblood is collecting another award. And I think it just shows you how different their lives are to what they would have had in the UK.
But Richard, do you think that were Harry still a working royal, he arguably might have ended up actually with quite a few more titles and gongs?
Oh, definitely. If Harry and Meghan were still working royals, Probably this week, Harry would have become a member of the Order of Thistle, as well as his uncle Prince Edward and his stepmother Queen Camilla. It's that sort of thing he could expect, and also generally his military titles would be upgraded in accordance with his age, as the sort of convention.
He would, yeah.
So he would have lots of new titles and honours. But that's the point. It comes with the territory of being a member of the royal family, and it's difficult. It's an awkward situation if they're trying to sort of replicate that in the show business world.
It will be really interesting to see if there's any response to Pat Tillman's mother's comments from Team Sussex. But well, to somebody who I think we can all agree is deserving of an award, I'm talking about Tony Hudgell. Now, this is a 9-year-old boy who, it's just shocking to even have to read this, had to have both lower legs amputated because of the abuse he suffered from his birth parents. He was presented with the British Empire Medal by Queen Camilla recently for bravery and charity fundraising. Now, Rebecca, I believe you played a part in getting him to meet the Queen.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't overstate it, but it basically Tony and another little girl who is bravely raising money for families after having to cope with a brain tumour herself. Herself and Tony, they were going to be invited to a Buckingham Palace garden party over the summer, and I was happened to be covering that garden party. And I noticed, because I knew Tony was meant to be there with his adoptive parents, who, I mean, what they've done with him and for him has just been amazing. He's raised like £2 million for charity by doing all these incredible walking challenges, despite the terrible injuries that were inflicted on him and his own ongoing medical issues as a result. And I kept looking for him, I couldn't see him, and I noticed on social media his mother had put a social media post up saying, "Oh, we're stuck in traffic and we're not going to make it, we're gutted." So I got in touch with the palace and said, "Have you seen this? Poor Tony is going to miss his big moment." They were like, "Oh no, we haven't seen it." "Right, leave this with us." And then I got a message back saying, "Right, look out on our social media." And they put a message to him saying, "We're so sorry to hear that you couldn't make it, leave it with us, we'll try and do something about it." I thought that might be, being invited to next year's garden party. But actually, much to my surprise, we got a briefing the other week to say they'd actually put on a special garden party for Tony and this other little girl, just for them. They had their own garden tea in the summer house. They had their own military band playing everything from Taylor Swift to songs from Frozen. They made them little special biscuits in the shape of guards. They even got a carriage drive to go and have a private tour of the Royal Mews, and that's when the Queen gave Tony his British Empire Medal for the incredible fundraising he does. And I defy anyone not to smile when they see the pictures. It was just lovely, really lovely.
Well done for helping to make that happen.
Joe,
that's a beautiful story.
I mean, it's about what they did for those children. But it was, I don't know. I like to be able to write nice stories about that, and it was a good one to be able to write.
Here. Now, to the Princess Anne section of the show. Fanfare in your head of your own choosing. What is the latest on the Princess Royal?
We need that fanfare, guys. We do.
Keep asking. No power. But she's out of hospital, I believe?
She's out of hospital. She came out the day after we recorded last week's programme, and we were asked not to publicise the fact that she was coming out. So that's why no one's seen any pictures, and obviously people were very happy to respect that. But we did get a statement from Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence, her husband, Seth, not actually about her, very typically in very low-key style, thanking the incredible medical staff and the help that they'd given her. I think what was interesting is that we were told that she would be needing to undergo some rehabilitation back at Gatcombe Park. Now, it's been stressed that's in line with people who've received serious concussion. So I don't think it's anything to overly worry about, but I think it does indicate she won't be back at work, any time in the immediate future.
Oh my gosh, we're not actually going to see Princess Anne slowing down her work schedule, are we, Charlotte?
Well, I think she's going to be furious, isn't she, if she has to slow down her schedule. But they need to sort of pull their socks up and think about this a bit, because without Princess Anne, as we all know, there won't be enough royals for all the engagements.
There won't be a Princess Anne section of the show.
We'll have to cancel the section. So they need to find a way to look after her and protect her, maybe even from herself, from doing too many events. Because if she, God forbid, something happened to her again and she had to completely cancel events, they would be up the proverbial proverbial river without a paddle.
Well, perhaps her daughter Zara could temporarily step in.
It would be so good if that happened.
Princess Zara.
I have
on
to,
down.
I spoke to someone who used to work for her, and they said, look, they haven't spoken to her or a team this week, but they said, I know how frustrated she'll be, especially cancelling engagements, particularly that trip to Canada we discussed, because she more than anyone knows how much work goes into the months and months of planning, months and months of work, and she would be the last person that would want to let anyone down. In fact, actually, she wrote a message that was read out to one of the events she had hoped to attend in Canada, which was marking the achievements of the military in I think it was the First World War, saying how sorry she was. So she couldn't be there. So she's definitely keeping an eye on things. But I think I was hoping we might see her at work within a week, 2 weeks. It might be slightly longer than that.
Well, if anyone who's had concussion knows it's no joke.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while. Well, to another recuperating royal, the Princess of Wales might be at the Wimbledon Tennis Championships over the next few days, or she might not. Either way, as she has become synonymous with the event over the past few years, we thought we'd bring you some of our favourite pictures of Catherine at the All England Tennis Club. It's a case of love, if you'll excuse that dreadful tennis pun. Now, a reminder to like and subscribe if you don't already. My thanks to Rebecca, Charlotte, Richard, and to you for watching. We will see you on Palace Confidential next week. Bye-bye.